Guys, hey, my mic's actually working this time. How's it going? All three boys here. We've got a new addition for the episodes now. Welcome onto the team, Suleymon.
That's me, guys. Hello. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to working with you lot.
Indeed. And obviously we are back to schedule content, and this is the first of many to come. This episode we've got a ton to talk about, and as with Sully, I'm also joined by my co-host as well, SoundBoi. How you doing?
That's me, back in the flesh again.
Yeah, and again, we're just going to shoot the shit. We're just going to talk about things that have been happening regarding Street Fighter, and we've just come off the back of potentially the biggest thing for its lifespan, which was the final Capcom Cup for Street Fighter 5. And in my opinion, I don't know about yours, I think it was the best Capcom Cup we've ever had for Street Fighter 5, personally. I think it was fantastic.
Oh, no, hard agree. No, I definitely think that was the best one. I think a big part of it was the fact that they had like a group stage. And I was quite skeptical on like why are they spreading it out so long. But it made like that whole week like a fun endeavor, because I would come back from work and be like, all right, let's just pop on Capcom Cup, see how the groups are moving this time. And like just being able to do that so much, actually, like I don't know, it made it easier to like catch up on things, and it didn't feel like you'd sleep one night and miss everything. It gave you a chance to like watch the matches, and so you knew you weren't completely out of the loop.
Yeah, I think my initial concerns were like, obviously with the system that they had in place has been different from what we've had every single year, and my worry was that it was going to be like you're going to end up having in a group stage like one group that was just like free. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, we don't know the true strength of some of these players that are coming in. It's hard to grasp within like a single event that they've qualified for within the region how good they really are. So that was always my concern. But I'll be honest, absolutely proved me wrong. It was great. It was really nice to see, and it was good to root for some of these guys that you didn't know. Some of these guys put on some crazy performances. You were like, oh, shit, I can't believe you actually did that well. And it ended up being like the sickest one we've ever had. So I mean, I eat my words. Fair enough.
But the thing that I really liked about this Capcom Cup, specifically, something that I think a lot of people changed their mind on during the event, was the World Warrior system. Because I think a lot of us, I think Momi made a tweet about it a little bit before Capcom Cup, saying there are a lot of players that don't particularly deserve to be here because their World Warrior path was a lot easier than others. And we were losing out spots of players like Bonchan or Takido, players that you traditionally expect to be at the Cup, in favour of players like, I'm just going to say his name, Kalmal, at the time.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to add to that point, because I actually made a tweet. I actually made a tweet about it, and some people sort of jumped on me for it, and some people sort of understood what I was going for, which was, I understand how Momi worded it. That definitely got to some people because he called them like frauds, and I get that. Yeah. But the core point was, at the time anyway, I agreed with, because you've got guys that have worked every single year really, really hard, like Problem X, Luffy, that just due to the nature of the system and the way that it's done this year, they've not been able to qualify. And that is a shame, because the way that we view Capcom Cup and the way that it's always been viewed is that it is like the final top 40 guys in the world, flat out, the most consistent, the best, fighting out to see who is the best of this season, right? And in a weird kind of way, it isn't that this year. It's more about regional representation. And I understand that due to some regions not having like the level of play that maybe Japan has or whatever, that some are going to be easier than others. At least to the naked eye, not knowing what the actual region is like, you're going to be like, that region's easy. We don't know anybody. Yeah. But again, it's sort of the only way we could really see what was going to happen was in the actual event, and the actual event was sick. So it's like you can't really be that mad, can you? Because it was actually great. So
the way I like look at it is like I think two things can be true. I think you can still say everyone like earned their place to be in Capcom Cup. The difficulty of earning said place is compared to previous leagues is like trivial at this point. Like compared to you had to place top, like reasonably high in majors around the world versus essentially just beating folk. You're basically banking on a good day of ranked, and then you're in Capcom Cup. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just people you're used to.
Yeah.
But I'd say like I think the World War. I think this shift to this new system is, I think for the most part, better. But it needs to be tweaked a bit, because I think there was definitely some regions that did not need to have their own World Warrior
definitely
set. And I think there was regions like Japan that did not have enough slots.
Definitely
they should have had way more slots than they did. So I think the system is better, low-key, but they need to fine-tune it a bit. I think they will do that. I think they've got like a lot of feedback from a lot of players.
I mean, I'm sure it was actually Launch that made a point to me. Shout out to that guy, by the way. Love Launch. But he made a point to me about that, because I was talking about it shows, not necessarily like a bias, but like, again, we're going to say that some regions don't have the same level of play as some others, and they have the same amount of slots, which is weird. And that, again, it shows sort of, not favoritism in a way, but it makes it easy it makes it much harder for some players to qualify because their region is ridiculous. And they still deserve to be there because they're still, in my mind, in the top 40 players in the world, right? However, in another weird kind of way, the old system really benefited people that were able to travel consistently.
Exactly, yeah.
And if you were not able to pay and travel consistently, even if you were sick, you couldn't qualify, really. And that, in another way, I was like, I suppose, actually, that's fair enough.
That's a very good point, because one of the people that kind of lost out on that last, I think it was 2019 Capcom Cup, and obviously before we had our Ending Walker as our young up-and-comer, we had Takamura. And Takamura's 2019 one was really good, and he missed out on Capcom Cup by like the skin of his teeth, really. I think he was like 34th, and he was just traveling everywhere off his own back, and that's what you had to do to try and make it. So I was very pleased that he was able to qualify this year and then have a good showing as well. So I do think that's another good thing that we're like moving away from that system, because I think it was kind of like a bit more safe for like travelers and whatnot. And at the same time, in terms of like regions and whatnot, I like the idea that South Africa gets a spot. I like these under-end, and as long as we have something in place, like similar to like the World Cup, really, where if someone from South Africa does really well, then alright, congratulations, you get an extra slot next year. Because it's kind of like, I think it was like in this World Cup, like Morocco got pretty far, and as a result, there's another qualification spot for Africa in the next World Cup. So something like that, where it's kind of just weighted on that region's general performance,
their strength,
depending on how many slots they get. Stuff like that, I think that would make the league so sick.
I think a lot of the kind of like negative response to the World Warrior system comes from, I think for the fighting game community in particular, we have a large culture rooted in offline competition, and we value offline competition over online. That's obviously not a talking point. Everyone knows that. I think moving into the next games, I don't think Street Fighter V or the last generation of games dealt with it very well, but with the next generation of games, I finally think we really have to put a nip in the bud on the idea that online is less valuable than offline, because we have the infrastructure now to have solidified netcode, strong online leaderboards, we have backing online from the publishers themselves, and we've seen the transition from online to offline happen a lot in Street Fighter V. Ending Walker is a great example, just did amazing at Capcom Cup, and he was predominantly an online player before that, playing online events, and I think he's traveled to like 3 offline events in total for majors. So I'm hoping that with the next game, the World Warrior system can have a bigger place and more relevance over purely offline travel, because again, like you guys have mentioned it benefits the few who can afford to travel across the world to compete for points.
One thing I'll say, this might be a hot take, but obviously there's a lot of criticism well-deserved criticism on Street Fighter V's online. But as far as it was fit for purpose, and the reason why I say that is because I don't think there's been a winner of any SF5 online CPT that was not capable of winning a major offline. Like the first one in season 1 was won by Infectious. Can't remember who won the rest, but they were players that you just assumed would win something like that. Sure, there's going to be a lot of laggy top 8s and whatnot, but I don't think it was at that point where some guy would sneak in and just lag everyone and finesse a cheeky bit of CPT points. I don't think it did that.
I definitely think that's a hot take, because if anyone here's competed in one of the Capcom Online events, you've probably been in the Discord, and you've probably seen what some players say when they lose. Get pretty heated in there over the netcode.
To fire in my perspective, because I mean I competed in like all of them. Do you know what I mean? I was there for all of them, and I will say that for the most part, within my own personal experience, within the region anyway, like when it was just UK, didn't really have any issues. I had one issue in the 7 tournaments or whatever the hell there was, or 6 tournaments. I had one issue, and it wasn't that big a deal. When it was EU West, I had more. I'll be honest. and very much one in particular that was just it was ridiculous. But yeah, there is a chance where that will happen, where somebody just has a bad day with everybody with connection wise. That could be CFN, that could be the provider or whatever. But for the most part, within especially the last year of competition, I didn't really have many matches where I was like, bro, this is unplayable, man. Like when I lost, I was like, okay, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. So within the last year anyway, within the regions, I was actually no problem.
Mm-hmm. No, that's what I mean. Like, full disclosure, I entered like maybe the ones at the start. I think towards the end, I was just done with it. I just preferred going offline. I think I just thought offline was way more fun than like trying to compete.
Yeah.
Especially like devoting the whole day to it. That was my issue with like the online terms. I didn't really like the idea of just like blocking that full day and I'm just sitting in front of my monitor, just waiting to like work through this bracket.
Yeah.
But I think with Street Fighter 6, I get the idea is a lot more polished. The game's a lot more fun. So we'll see how that progresses. But all in all, like I think just general, I think Street Fighter gets like a lot of criticism, and I see it. I qualified as again. I think it's deserved. I don't think that was fine. I do think like they got it there in it. Like I'm not saying it did what it was supposed to do. Like, but I'm not saying they did it cleanly, but it got there in the end. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that just needs to be acknowledged.
I'll concede the point. It did its job. It was at least functional enough for good players to win at the end of the day, which is more than you can ask for, I suppose.
Exactly.
I wanted to touch on the group stages of Capcom Cup and how you guys expected some of these groups to go. So we can go through group by group. And we can just talk about the players that you thought were favourites, dark horses, people that you might have expected to go through, not going through. And I suppose we can start with Group A. I can remind you guys of the players. I've got a graphic here. So for Group A, this was one of the killer brackets. We had Idom, Takamura, Veggie, Oil King, Ronaldinho BR, and Solvenji. So this was what I considered one of the top three like hardest brackets to break through. You had three really, really strong players in there who were going to fight for that top three place. So who would you guys expect to go through in this group, looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, straight away you're saying Idom, aren't you? Straight away.
You expect Idom, yeah. He was definitely the favourite going into this.
I know everyone was... Honestly, I think out of the people I spoke to, I think the most popular opinion was Idom, Oil King.
Yeah.
But I said Takamura at the time.
I also said Takamura. I had a belief.
Because I genuinely believe the guy when he's there, when he's on one, I think he's one of the best to do it, and I think he's ridiculous.
100%.
And seeing him perform, I wanted him, and I'll say this, I'll preface this before speaking on anything else. I wanted Takamura to win the whole thing. Yeah. I wanted him. I supported Phil, and I supported, a couple other guys as well. Like, I want Idom to do well as well. But I wanted Takamura to win more than anything. And to see him do well was like, I mean, I really, really loved that shit,
I posted a tweet predicting, and I think I already forgot what I put down. I think it was Idom, and I think it was either going to be Oil King or Takamura. But like you said as well, SoundBoi, like I 100% agree. I was so happy to see Takamura. Like he kind of bodied that pool, to be honest. So I was happy for him. I was really happy for him, especially after I mentioned earlier about the previous Capcom Cup. I was just the fact that he was in there cooking. I'm like, that's right, you deserve this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I something about Takamura. A lot of people undervalue Takamura's ability to play because, again, Cal mentioned it. When Takamura is on fire, he looks unstoppable. He has insane reactions. He can use that V skill 1 like nobody else on Akuma. He makes so much value out of that, and yeah, he stomped that bracket hard. I don't think anyone expected him to dominate as much as he did, but yeah, that bracket was absolutely insane. One of the best watches as well.
I was going to say just quickly on that as well, I think a lot of people had it that if he was going to go through, it was losers, it wasn't in winners.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people everyone was like Idom winners, was like the flat out prediction, which, is understandable. He was a favourite to win the whole thing. But to see Takamura kind of push that through, like, just honestly, you got to love it. You got to love it.
So, Group B. Now, Group B had one of the UK boys in it. It had 4 fills. This included Just the Kid, 4 fills, Phenom, Kawano, Young-Ho, and Doomsnake. This, again, was a killer bracket. And a lot of us were rooting for fills to get through in this bracket. But it was full of long-time veteran competitors, so it was a very difficult run for him to make it. So
yeah, I mean, I believed in Phil's after watching him, obviously, with SFL, and I've gotten to know him really well, and we've ran games since then as well. I really thought he was going to do it, and it was like the hardest one to get through. You can't be upset at losing in that pool, but I thought it was going to be Koano and Phil's. I really thought.
Yeah, this one, I think I had Phenom. I think I had Phenom and Phil. I didn't. For some reason, I was not putting respect on Kawano's name in my prediction. So, so lo and behold, that shows how out of touch I am. But no, I feel for Phil. This was a really tough draw, to be honest. But at the end of the day, at least we get one European guy out of that pool than being Phenom. But Phenom is kind of who you expect. He's just extremely solid.
Absolutely. And he's another one again that if you were to look at that pool, I mean to be honest, I think nearly everybody in that pool you could say could go through.
100%.
But if it wasn't going to be Phil's for me, I would have said Phenom, because he's just. It's weird. We were talking. He spoke about this not too long ago, but it's weird how strangely underrated he is within the world. People forget. I think internationally, we don't forget in Europe, but internationally, I think people forget how good he actually is.
I think he's back to back, Capcom Cup qualifier, because I think
he's always qualified.
Yeah, I think he's always been there.
Yeah, 100%.
He's always qualified. So you've got to put him down as one of the most consistent players of all time.
100%. 100%.
Do you know what I mean? So
I think for EU, I'd call him the most consistent. Honestly, I know a lot of people say problem, but for me, Phenom always shows up every single time.
Phenom's the most, 100% consistent. Yeah.
Because it shows as well in this character choice. You could pick anything. I think you could pick anything, and as long as it's strong, within the top tiers, you'll qualify. It doesn't really matter. And that to me is an element of consistency that you don't touch on. It's all well and good that say I could do really well with Cody, but if you then stick me on fucking Ryu if he's really good, and even if I was to play him for 6 months, it's I don't think I'd be able to do it. Whereas if you did that with Phenom, as long as the character's good, I think he'd be able to do it.
He's just crazy. He's crazy experienced, because every time you see him in a tournament against another big name like Daigo, you don't look at it as out of place. You're not oh, I wonder how he'll do against. You're just all right, go with Phenom. You know what I mean? Let him cook. You know what I mean? It's just you're just used to him in those high placing tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Group C. Now, Group C was an upset group because of what happened, but this had Punk in it. And everyone expects Punk to go through because he's US's golden child. We had Balmaster, Jabheem, VXBO, Frozen, and my boy Brandon. Don't forget Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. Let's go.
This group, I think everyone expected probably one of Punk and Balmaster to go through, or VXBO going into it. But VXBO, I didn't know much about the Chinese players going into Capcom Cup, and I think that was massively in part due to COVID and the split of communities. All of the Chinese players who showed up cooked at this event hard, and VXBO was one of them in his group stage. I think he went 5-0, and he was dominating every player in that bracket.
Yeah, which I'll be honest, actually took me quite by surprise. Not just because I didn't know him, but I remember watching his game after, because I actually missed a chunk of the group stages. I caught up, but initially I missed it, and I was like, Jesus, this guy's killing everybody. And I watched his first game when the group stages were finished, and I can't remember who it was against. It might have been against Phenom. I think it was, actually. And Phenom knows the matchup really, really well. We play it all the time. And he beat him really soundly, to be honest with you. He beat him 2-0, and it wasn't really that threatening. And that was my surprise. I was like, how did this guy cook everybody? But I suppose from a Cody player's perspective, I could tell what he was doing. I was like, he's holding zonk right now. Okay, he's gonna let it rip now. And Phenom knew as well, because we've played so much. So I was like, did people in that pool just not know the matchup, or is he genuinely ridiculous? So I was like, I couldn't tell.
I was watching this pool, and I was just I was watching the matches from this pool, and I was thinking this. I struggled to tell if Punk really cared. Do you know what I mean? I just felt I don't know why he was picking mirror matches and whatnot. I felt shouldn't you just have coming in with Luke and just try and smoke everyone what the other series top players are doing?
Yeah.
I was not expecting to get smoked this bad. Valmaster I can kind of understand, because at least Valmaster has a record on. But as for the rest, how do you go 2 and 3 in this pool? Do you know what I mean?
The strange thing about Punk was he travelled to Japan and he fought a lot of Japanese players. I remember putting a tweet out where he was kind of like hugging Takedo and he went, "Thank you for reigniting my competitive passion. I'm going to try my best for Capcom Cup." And then the weird thing happened where at Capcom Cup, he was playing on hitbox for the first time in a tournament on characters that weren't his main. Very questionable decision to make at the final Capcom Cup.
He did not care, man.
I don't think he
was just
cared.
coming in. He came in with a pre-packaged OS, like,
Well, I was just gonna say on a it's funny, but like on a serious note, and I'm like anyone that's competed for a while will tell you this is real. That is 100% like I have an excuse ready. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that to shit on him, but I guarantee you he went in and he went, you know what? Really not trained as hard as I could have. I really don't care as much as I could have. If I smoke everybody on hitbox, I'm the GOAT. If I lose, I don't give a shit. And I was playing hitbox, don't play his characters, bro. Whereas if he came in elite ready, he would have actually done well. But it's that level of I know that I've not done enough, so I'm gonna just do this, and I'm ready to just peace out. But I'm playing hitbox, bro. Being real with you.
Yeah, he was just basically, he probably just did like cramming and like he did not study for this exam. He just came in and tried to get by on vibes, essentially. You know what I mean? It was like...
Absolutely.
So we move on to Group D, and then Group D had the boy Ending Walker in it. Had Joe Ume Rogan. It had Ren, M Lizard. I think he's Tourniquet online. The Vega players.
Yeah.
Juninho Ras and Bravery. Now, obviously, going into this bracket, I think this one was very divided because among friends, a lot of people were saying, "I think Ending Walker's going to destroy this bracket," and I had another half of people who were going, "I don't think Ending Walker's going to get through this bracket. I think he's going to get washed by these players."
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When I first looked at it, I thought he was going to get through with no issues.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, same. I think I thought that was the general consensus. Like even Ending Walker himself just said, like, "Yeah, I think I've got the easy." I
got a very easy road.
I agree.
Ratings for that, by the way. I love that he said that.
But you know what? Look, like he said it on multiple occasions to me that he genuinely believes he has real life plot armor. Where like he walks into events that like he just gets this, and it's like, oh, okay, like. Do you know what I mean? Or like in the CPT, they won every single World Warrior and they won the final. And he's like, I've got real plot armor. He's like, I shouldn't have won some of these sets, but people made mistakes and then I won. I was like, fair enough.
I'm too scared. If I look at a major, I'm too scared to say like my pool is like all right and I've got a good chance of making it out. I can't say that. He was in a group of Capcom Cup saying, "Yeah, I've got the easiest one." Yeah. Like that's insane to me.
That's levels of confidence, man. Levels of confidence. The guy doesn't care if he looks like a fool if he lost. He's like, whatever.
One of the things that really surprised me about Ending Walker was when I was Ender's age, if you put me on stage, even at my local, I'd be scared. Man's at Capcom Cup with nerves of steel, bro. This kid is insane. I can't believe it.
Do you know what?
You guys remember going to your first local? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, do you guys remember going to your first local and like you just get called up for your match at your local? Like your hands are gonna be. My hands were shaking, and I was just thinking. And there wasn't even a stream setup, man. I was just thinking like, oh, I want to get put in the stream setup. That looks quite stressful. And like, yeah, it just furthers up your point, Muggins. Like just the fact that he was able to kind of go in all these high. UFA was his first offline event, and he just made it all the way, and everyone's cheering. It's insane. I don't know how I can't comprehend that.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying as well, his sort of own sort of insight into it, that he does feel very nervous inside. Like he feels like he's bricking it, but on the outside he looks cool and his hands aren't shaking or anything. So there must be a degree that he's able to just control it and focus on what he's doing. But on the inside, he says like when it's done, he's like shaking like a leaf because he's bricking it. But in the set, he can focus and just ignore it, which is a skill that you just don't. I don't feel you learn that. I feel that is intuitive, like to you. So that's phenomenal to have that, especially at that age. But yeah, in that pool, for me, it was Ending Walker was going to run through it. And then it was probably, for me, I would have said Joey Rogan. He's playing Luke. He's pretty good.
To be fair, though, Juninho Ras almost had his ass.
Juninho Ras did give him a run for his money.
Like, he was like the one guy in there who had like anti-ed stuff, and he was sweating, bro. Like,
he made it look hard.
That was my favorite set in all of Capcom Cup. I've not watched every single set. I must be honest, but that was out of the most I watched. That was my favorite. It was a really good one.
Okay, I respect that. So if we go on to Group E, now Group E has my hero of Capcom Cup. Well, we got Mags, we got Vega Patch, we got Calmal, we got W Falcon, and we have ROF. Now, when I went, I will completely admit this. When Calmal was in, I was like, he don't particularly deserve to be there. As soon as I watched this group, I was like, I am so sorry for the things I said about you, bro. You are godlike. You deserve to be here, bro. Because he did some sick things and won some matches in ways that got me hype. I can't lie.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Calmal was really... Calmal was that name everyone laughed at because it's like this guy got in, like... He's basically got like a free ticket here.
Yeah.
But I think it's very much the same vibe with like all of you. Like, man, it's just like, you know, we owe you an apology. We're not familiar with the game, Calmal.
What's it? I mean, I still want to stand by my point that I feel like Capcom Cup, again, it's about the top guys in the world who are the most consistent, yada, what I said. But on an additional layer, the guy proved us wrong. I was one of those people, 100%, that said, like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't think I've not even seen his gameplay. I don't know who he even plays. I was like, so to see his name alongside like NL and all that, I was like, this guy's gonna get smoked. Let's be real. And he actually pulls off and actually like nearly gets out. You know what I mean? I was like, yay, fair play to you, man, for showing up and just doing your thing on the biggest stage. I can't be upset with that. I've got to respect that. 100%.
I started watching back his games earlier today, just before. Obviously, we went live today, but. We talk about like ending Walker's confidence on stage. This guy was taunting like in combos mid-game, and like he was proper like popping off and feeling himself. And he's also another one of these young guys. He was kind of rude. I hope to see him more in like
for sure.
Because he was really fun to watch. Like it's crazy. I don't know where you get the confidence, but still, he was amazing.
I hope that we get more of an insight into that guy's mindset going into Capcom Cup, because it must be a strange position to be in, and you can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
To have entered a tournament as like the least favorite. Do you know what I mean? Like, all these people being like, this guy's whack. This guy, never heard of him. And he knew it. 100% he knew it, right? To go into an event with that in the back of your mind, would you be scared, thinking, man, maybe I don't deserve to be there? Or do you go, do you know what? I hate all of you. I'm doing my thing. I'm going to taunt on stage. I don't care anymore. And he did that, and it worked. And I wonder if that's the mindset he went in with, thinking, you guys underrate me, and I'm just going to be an arse. I'm going to go in there and just do my thing and just disrespect everybody.
If you guys are all going to be haters, I don't care, bro. Be my haters then, innit? Be them.
That's it. I want to know, really. I really want to know.
I like the idea that he kind of just went there and just didn't know anybody. Like, he probably just thought everyone did like the same thing he did.
Like he was on the team.
He probably thought like the qualifiers was probably the same difficulty everywhere. So he's just like, all right, you're right, and he just played everyone like they weren't that nice. But in terms of his mindset, Tokido actually interviewed him, so I feel like if you want to, like he interviewed a lot of players, but Calmal was one of the guys he interviewed. Like, game recognizes game, like that, obviously. So we could probably end up watching that at some point and see what's going on.
One of the things that I actually wanted to bring to attention was, we mentioned it earlier, how the World Warrior system allows people to compete who otherwise can't. The FGC predominantly does not have a lot of young people come into it in competitive standards, because again, it costs so much money to travel. So a lot of the people that compete are usually younger 20s, mid 20s, people that have, that disposable income to be like, fuck it, I'm going to go to the US and compete in Florida for a weekend. And the online qualifiers lets people like Calmal and, Ending Walker was traveling regardless, but people like Ending Walker, people who are below 20, who don't have that massive disposable income to spend on traveling, to just show up to Capcom Cup and put new blood into the scene, in a scene that doesn't particularly get it too often in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I just want to bring light to the fact that younger people are getting to compete on the really big stage because of this system. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of the many benefits of switching to this new new system. Like I said, it's stuff to fine tune.
Of course,
And specifically, obviously, we talked about like regions about that were kind of overrepresented. To kind of segue into this next part.
Yeah.
Now, I remember in season 1, season 2, we used to complain about NA got way too many like majors and stuff, and it was much easier for an NA person to qualify. I feel like for this Capcom Cup, even though like I'm biased and I'm happy EU did so well in this Capcom Cup, we were 100% the NA. We had way more slots.
Oh yeah, we had tons.
It's true.
We had way more.
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, and you guys, Like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? I don't care. I'll say my piece. Certain regions did not deserve their own spot. Let's be honest.
We all know the one we're talking. Like, let's just be honest, bro. Germany didn't deserve its own slot.
Germany didn't deserve shit. I'm sorry. Like,
Germany did not need its own World Warrior spot. Yeah, 100%.
Like, get out of here, bro. Like, I'm sorry, but like, who? Listen, I'm gonna go off one, right? But listen, I look at Germany as a region on its own, and I don't go top 5 guys. There are killers that deserve to be there. This top 8's gonna be sick. There's like one guy. Do you know what I mean? And he's Ryan Hart. Mm-hmm. But no, but you look at like the UK, and in my honest opinion, the top 5 guys in the UK on the day when they are there, like they're feeling it, could have qualified in those events where you have to win one and you go. Yeah. So, low-key, you could either make that region sort of bigger and make them, qualify against other countries, because I don't think they're strong enough on their own. Especially considering we only got 2 slots. And our region is ridiculous. The top 5 guys in our region is absolutely unreal. And we only got 2. So that, to me, that's all I'm saying.
Sully mentioned that we should only have slots depending upon how strong the seeds are. So the UK and Ireland, we should probably have like 2 to 3 slots. France deserves its own spot, I think, because the scene in France is quite strong. And then we should just have an EU West and an EU East. I don't really think we need more than that for Europe at large.
No, and if you want to equalise the spots as well, again, that's 2 spots down. So we tie with NA for 7 each.
Yeah.
Makes more sense.
Now, I know it's like a connection thing people need to consider, but like the span in France, well, I suppose like France is big enough, but I feel like the span of, like, I think just the way EU was kind of chopped up, it was kind of random. Like we've already mentioned that EU was Germany did not need to be its own spot. If it got lumped in with like EU West along with like Belgium and the other countries, that would have been fair.
Yeah.
I think the North one was fine. I think North.
Yeah, Scandinavia was good.
Scandinavia was fine. Or maybe they get popped into EU East. I don't know, but like it did not need to be its own. I think that was one of the bigger blunders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy that like, how many slots did Japan have? As a region?
2, I think it was just 2.
Because that to me is mad. You could take the 2 slots, again, if it's me, you could take the 2 slots from Germany, right? Match them with like the Italy and whatever. Maybe even with France if you want to do. And then give, I mean, let's be real, 2 more slots to Japan. Japan as a region deserves more than 2. I'm sorry. They've consistently proven they're the best region every goddamn year, alright? Like, give them 2 more slots.
They definitely deserve more than what they had. And especially their community is so big as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way 2 is enough for Japan. It's insane.
It's like when you consider the size of like UK and like Japan, and they're like, yeah, both these guys get 2 each.
That's insane, bro. That is insane.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. That's crazy to me, man.
For the groups as well, I want to touch upon the online qualifiers and kind of like combine these 2 things together. I want to look at Group H, and I want to talk about the CP Germany qualifier, who was Jimmy, and I just want to bring up the fact that there are probably a lot of people here who were putting bets on for this. I just want to bring to light the fact that Jimmy's odds were really messed up. I felt bad for Jimmy for the odds that he was given. I think it was like 1 to 50 or 50 to 1 or something. It was insane.
Really?
And his chances to win Capcom Cup were 100 to 1. I'd be gone. The moment you told me those odds and I was at that event, I'd be gone, bro. I'd be checked the fuck out already. I'd be done.
Do you know what? The worst thing you can do to somebody, because it's happened to me, is either tell them the odds of like if you're in like a big event, or tell them that people are betting on you. It's the worst thing ever. I think it was it Versus Fight in 2019? I think it was. I was not as confident as it was going into this event. But I remember, and I won't name names, people told me, they were like, oh, you've got ISTD game 1, don't you? I was like, yeah, I feel alright. They were like, you better win because we bet money on you. And I was like,
no.
That's bad. I said, yeah, in the side bets, we bet money on you. And I lost, because I tell you, I freaked out. I was like, people are betting money on me? And that
imagine they probably like hammed up, like, yeah, we bet so much money, like, we mortgaged my house.
Like, it's probably like 2 quid, but I was like, it was rough. I was like, I can't lose these people money. It was whack. Don't ever do that. But yeah, again, talking about his odds was definitely a wee bit. As soon as you see those odds, he would have just been like, I don't want to be here, man.
Some odds were a gift. I'd have bet if I wasn't a man of God, obviously. But Enemy Walkers, they were like very generous considering how strong he was, just to get out of his group. And like so many people just made like a good stack off that. Just making what is probably the more safest bets in tournaments.
I was going to say it's definitely one of the more reliable ones if you were gonna make a bet on something. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely going to be one of the ones where you're like, well, I'll stick a couple quid on it. It was like 18-1 or whatever it was. You know what I mean? It's like, well, easy money really. If it goes down the drain, I've lost like a fiver, but otherwise I make good money.
No, 100%. So, in terms of our criticism with how EU kind of was kind of, we can say overrepresented, or just I think the way it was cut up was not done well. How would you guys? This might be a bit hard to think of on the spot, but how would you guys split up EU in terms of like qualification regions?
For EU, I mean, I think we should. I think the max one region should have is probably about 7 because we need to keep slots open for offline. And I do think offline should still have that kind of premier effect to it. I would give 2 to the UK. I would give, in my opinion, people might disagree. I would probably give 2 to France. I think France is.
I agree with that as well. That's fair. Yeah.
I would get rid of Germany and bungle it more up into an EU West and EU East package, and you could potentially add an EU South because there are distance issues and connection issues with Italy. And then I would give Scandinavia their own region as well because they deserve it. They have a very strong scene as well. And you're nearing 7 slots at that point, and that's honestly all you need for EU. I don't think it's too difficult, but it's just.
So what happens with Spain? Does Spain get to keep their own region then?
I don't particularly think Spain should have its own region. I don't, but
I think it's just Vega Patch there. Like Spain is just like Vega Patch's qualification spot. But do we rope them in with France? Maybe I think that's fair to rope them in with France, in my opinion. If it's only one like sick player in Spain, I feel like it's fair to like.
If it's for SF6, like I do feel like the netcode will be so good that we could just do an EU West and EU East, and I don't think there would be many. I don't think there'd be many issues between players in connections because obviously we have to. If it was Street Fighter 5, we have to be careful about distance because if you go 2 countries ahead, you're screwed. Everyone's going to lag to each other. If it was Street Fighter 5, I'd have a dedicated EU South for countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy. But again, that's those shows.
Spain, Portugal, and Italy.
I would rather bundle Italy with the south of Europe rather than the rest of EU East because.
Well, I think as well, it's talking about whether it's 5 or 6, and if you're talking 6, I think the most important thing I think to nail is because we're having both offline and online, qualifiers or whatever the hell it is how many spots do you give to online, and how many. If you're doing the entirety of EU West, they're all going to be individual events. They're not going to be. I don't think it's going to be a World Warrior system again. I don't think. I think it's going to be like you win this event.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I can't remember what they're doing. Is it a World Warrior thing they're doing again?
I think it was in the trailer. Yeah. So it's. I remember we talked about this a while ago. Frost, you mentioned like World Warrior looks like what's going to replace ranking events, and it's just going to be the premiers that are basically like the free qualification slots.
Right. Okay. So I'm assuming then that with the World Warrior system, that's going to be the online one. That's going to be like a point accumulator or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the offline ones is like. You and Evo, you qualify. I guess. I suppose that's gonna, be.
Or you get so many points that it becomes like very easy to qualify at that point. In terms of like winning a premier.
I think is the system that you get points and then you get put into the finals if you get to the top of the leaderboards and then you win that finals bracket and you get the qualification spot, or am I off? Is that?
That's my bad. I was thinking of premiers. I didn't realize you were still talking about World Warrior. Yeah, I think World Warrior is you win a number of World Warrior tournaments and then. Your points accumulate, and then you get put in the finals.
And then bam, you
probably the same. I low-key wish. Part of me like really hoped that we would get the Tekken Dojo system.
Yeah, I love the Dojo system.
That was amazing. But after talking to a lot of Tekken players, they were telling me a lot of stories about how that got abused. Because obviously the way it worked is that the more people that entered your tournament, the higher like tier it went.
Yeah.
But for a while. They didn't actually discount people that got DQ'd.
Oh,
the mad thing about that is I swear that I have like a single Tekken World Tour point. I think it was at an NFC where I went, and I'm sure some people didn't turn up, and I got like 5th, and it was like, oh wow, you're in it, and I was like, I'm not a Tekken player, bro. I swear it was that. So yeah, that system's it definitely needs some fine tuning.
I feel like. Obviously, I think World Warriors is Capcom's version of kind of like a a little bit of a half measure between like the old ranking events and dojo, and it's fit for purpose. But the thing is, what can't be like understated, but what the dojo system did for locals all around, like all I can see is like Europe. Like every local was popping because everyone was trying to get points, and it became so easy for us to get like tournaments up in Glasgow when people would come up to enter them and whatnot. It just completely changed the game. It was awesome, but obviously, in terms of verification or whatnot, it was a bit harder to do. It was, I mean, there was definitely folk chancing it, like, oh yeah, like 100-man major over here, everyone got DQ'd, I only turned up, use your points. You know what I mean? But I feel like stuff like that should not be hard to, I don't know, let's say audit maybe. But like, if you, for example, if you just have like regional, if they just plot the regions or competitive scenes to become like verified, and they like these guys are allowed to run dojo events, I think that would work really well.
Yeah.
It's a hard question. It's really difficult to get right because, whatever Capcom are going to do this year, it's going to be the first year of essentially what is essentially something new. I don't think we've ever done anything quite like having the World Warrior system and then having offline events as well. So it's going to be, things are going to happen that we're going to be like, that needs to change, like 100%. So we're gonna have to see, really. But I will say that I'm happy that they're trying to do both, because I do think that there are flaws with both of the systems, as in the old one where you had to travel constantly, and the other one being the way that the slots work. Some people aren't going to make it that do deserve to be there. So the fact there's both, you're going to find that there's some people that won't do the online. I'll tell you right now, for a fact, I don't think Problem X will do the online.
I think he will, because Street Fighter 6's online is a lot better this time. It is. And
but I know him. I think he'd rather do the offline, and he'll be like, I'm not doing this online anymore.
I think that's understandable with Street Fighter 5. But I think Street Fighter 6 online was a lot more polished, and a lot of people like to kind of like turn their nose up at online stuff like that. But I think the inclusion of more of it is going in the right direction, and this Capcom Cup is like pretty much proof of that. This was like all online, and it also still managed to result in probably the most entertaining Capcom Cup.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was really hoping for a dojo structure, like, competitor, because I remember going to an ED local quite a while back for Grand Blue and for Street Fighter, and the Street Fighter bracket, I think it amounted to about 10 people. People weren't really bothered about travelling for it. Tekken had 60! That is ginormous for Birmingham. The dojo system really makes people want to get out there because it feels officially backed. It's like, bro, I can get points just for going for my local? Of course I'm going, bro, of course. So,
bro, being a Street Fighter player when the dojo stuff came out was the hardest shit ever, man. We were like fully the Squidward meme, just looking at the window, seeing all these Tekken players having like the time of their lives, traveling to all these events, and we were just sitting there with like,
hey, bro, you get a free pizza if you win this event, bro. So like, come on down, isn't it?
That's the train back is there. Let's go. Bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the current system that we have because there's a lot of online infrastructure to support it. So, for Street Fighter 6, I think it looks really good. For Street Fighter 5, obviously, there were kinks due to the game. For the most part, the experience wasn't so great. But yeah, I'll be very happy with the system in 6. I think World Warrior is a really, really good move in the right direction.
That being said, I do hope the offline does get a lot of support, because
I do hope so. Yeah,
as fun as online tournaments are, there's nothing beats it. Nothing like just going to a major and seeing all the people you run into online, like the social aspect of it, and also like just playing sets straight after you're out your pools. Just being around for pools is like the funnest thing ever.
It's the in between when you're online in a bracket and your match finishes. You're like, okay, I gotta kind of just chill and wait, and you're on your ones. You can join a VC for a little bit, but then you got to be like, guys, I've got to go. I've got a match by. I've got a def feed. It's just like the energy isn't there for an online event as much as it is an offline event. Do you know what I mean? It never feels the same. You can't feel that void.
It's like, you can't do that with like offline. You could be at an offline event and then turn to your left and you can see SoundBoys up against Daigo, and you're like, oh, let's go watch him. You know what I mean? Can't get that online. So I hope they bring that back.
Something I miss is
the crowds. Back, but I hope they focus on it. So
I miss the crowds though. Like you turn around and everyone's just crowded around one thing, and you're like, what's going on over there? And it's literally like two sick guys playing. You're like, oh shit! And the next thing you know, everyone's there. It's like, oh, mental.
My favorite type of crowd is when it's not like two sick guys playing, but it's like Which tournament was it? It was versus fighting. Like, was it like NL who almost lost to like Daniel Dillips or something?
That was
like
Infiltration. I think it was Infiltration that he almost
Infiltration almost lost to Daniel Dillips. Like stuff like that. It's all fun in games until you're up against someone from France or Belgium and they got all their homies around them. And like that is a test of like mental fortitude on your part. Because can you deal with the guys directly behind you popping off after every time you get hit?
It breaks you, bro. It breaks you.
Trust. You just need good headphones for that. It's mad. That's what it was. I was mixing up. Kim Precision almost beat NL. It was like it came down to the final guess. That was that versus fight. Oh man, like just stuff like that. Like that is just so entertaining to watch.
I agree. Fully agree.
But what were we saying? We still talking about the groups as well.
Honestly, I was kind of done with the groups because there was one with Momochi. It was the ones before H, which were like it was guaranteed 2 players got out of those for the most part. I did want to bring up the top 16 though. I've got a graphic here of the top 16 that I want to bring up. And just kind of talk about how that bracket went through, and then obviously the finals as well. Because as soon as it hit that top 3, I was super hyped because it was guaranteed to be a banger, because it was either a 2-time Capcom Cup champ or it was Zen, who was on a demolition job through that bracket and through the LCQ. I was going to grab the graphic here, but yeah, it was for the winner's side. I think we had Takamura and we had... Let me grab it here. We had Takamura, we had Mena RD, we had Ending Walker, NL, Kawano, Zen, VX Bear, and Angry Bird. And yeah, it was stacked. It was stacked, especially because of how these players were playing beforehand as well. Like, a lot of these players were coming out of their groups in, like, dominating fashion. There were quite a few 5-0s, 4-1s.
This also is a little bit controversial, but can we talk about Ending Walker? How kind of had, like, a very blessed run to top 4. Like, I feel like... Flaw armor, yeah. He won his group fair enough, but I feel like even if he lost to Ebb Lizard, I think he still gets out in winners. I'm not sure. I've not done the math on it. I remember doing it briefly at some point. But that's not the case, obviously, so you can blow me up for that. But it's like he got out of groups, lost to Mena RD, and then lost to IDOM. 4th place, congratulations. You know what I mean? When you compare that to like the run that like Mena RD made, that was like, oh, in fact, never mind. I'm talking nonsense. He beat NL to actually get further, and that's where they've not put respect on his name, obviously. But I think like Mena RD's run was like insane. Like the fact that he led up to winning it.
I know Mena's sick, but out of this, I did not pick him to win.
No, neither did I. No.
I thought he had a great year when he won his Capcom Cup. He absolutely smashed it. That was great, and he went to do quite well after it as well. But just the past few years, just never ever hear anything about the guy. And I was like, yeah, he's made it, but like, I was like, he's all right.
It'd have been a while
but if he
since
runs
he had a big
into Ending Walker or IDOM or whatever, I was like, he's gonna get smoked. And he actually just surprised everybody by beating everyone's ass. I was like, fair enough.
I feel like the fact that we've not heard him might be just our like Japan, NA, and EU bias. Because I think when I looked back at his run when he qualified the first time in like 2017, and he placed quite high. Like he placed higher than a lot of like players that you'd expect to do well, and he placed high in a lot of premieres. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense why he got sponsored in the first place to make it to Capcom Cup.
Well, a lot of people are saying that because he's the only person to ever win it twice, there's an argument for him being in the picture of the best 5 player of all time, which is something we'll get onto. But
I mean, most decorated maybe, but I wouldn't put him. I still wouldn't put him in that conversation.
Not my goal.
No, it's not my goal either.
For me, when I looked at this bracket, for some reason I was like fate has compelled me. I know Ending Walker's going to beat NL. And looking at what he had to run into, I was like, I think Ending Walker gets guaranteed winners finals here. Like, that's the route I was thinking, because I thought he would also beat Mena or Takamura, just because I just feel like the clash of play styles would do them both in. Obviously, Mena, he won it in pretty dominating fashion at the end. But yeah, I think Ending Walker had a really good chance to potentially win this Capcom Cup, which was insane for me. Like, this was crazy, man.
After getting through NL, I thought he was going to. Because NL looked like, I don't know if you remember that set, but the first game NL smoked him. Like, it was like bad. I was like, if he doesn't recover from this right now, like this is gonna hurt a lot. He's gonna struggle in losers. And he somehow managed to pull it back and end up winning that set, which was like phenomenal. And I thought, if he can recover from that in this kind of environment with this sort of stakes on the line and whatnot, he's gonna win. If he beats NL right now, he's gonna absolutely go through and smoke. And then he didn't. I was like, wow. Mena stopped him. And then was it Idom right after that?
Yeah, Idom stopped him in loser's side, yeah.
Crazy.
So
I really thought...
It was crazy, the contrast of players that were able to shut Ending Walker down, because again, you saw NL struggle quite a lot, because NL looked like he was very stressed playing Ending Walker. I remember watching that set, he looked tense. And then I watched, Idom fight Ending Walker, and that game plan just got dismantled so hard by Idom.
Yeah, I mean, do you know the thing with Idom? Because do you know when all the players came over for Red Bull?
Yeah.
And we got to play against like Tokido and all that stuff. It was crazy. I played quite a few of them, and I did really well against a lot of them. But Idom, in the fastest amount of time, and he was the only person that really beat me like badly. I was like, Jesus, this guy's ridiculous. But in the fastest amount of time, was able to dismantle my game plan straight away. He just the first round or two, I was getting away with some stuff. I was showing some habits that I do, and then within that, he knew what I was going to do.
Yeah, the data.
He just kept on making the right decisions, and I was like, this guy is just absolutely ludicrous. And I'm deliberately trying to mix up my options, and he just figured out how I think straight away. So if you have a game plan where there are patterns and you do kind of play in a specific, you don't play sort of free form, you do play with a bit of like a tendency, you'll figure it out. He will figure it out. And I think the way that pre-V Trigger the Ending Walker likes to play, he has tendencies, he has habits, and even guys in Europe have figured that out, and they tend to, I mean, he's even admitted himself, they do tend to lose to the V Trigger game. It's the V Trigger game that tends to set that apart. And you'll beat him in neutral, you'll be able to deal with Flicker, but then V Trigger comes out and you're like, great, I've got to guess now. And I think Idom just figured that out as well straight away, and it was like, Jesus, man, guys just good.
I've got a question. So obviously Idom has like still managed to maintain a lot of dominance. Now my question is for you guys, and your thoughts on this. Like, is Idom so sick that he's able to achieve like his dominance in spite of V Shift, or were grappler mains being drama queens and just overstating the damage that V Shift done to their characters?
I remember when V-Shift was just released, because Shivs played a lot of Laura, I turned to Shivs, I was like, how does Laura do against V-Shift? And Shivs went, oh, she gets dominated by it. She hasn't got any options for it. And then I watched a couple of Laura players play the game, and I immediately noticed that she has a frame kill for throw into a punish on V-Shift. So I was like, she doesn't get dismantled by it because you can call it out.
That's what I mean, bro. I will see like a Laura do a setup and proceed to just like punish a V-Shift for half their life, and like, okay, it's the same mind game. Like, why was everyone losing their minds over this?
That in the main situation, you want a V-Shift in terms of a button is Stand Fierce. Yeah, they're gonna hit you with Stand Fierce. You want a V-Shift after it because it's gonna be clap or it's gonna be whatever. Do you know how you beat that? You either just do nothing and it's fine, and then you punish them, or you do it into command dash if you want like the big money, the big damage. And it's like, so basically your button on block is a mix-up. If I want to do V-Shift, it's like, that's not bad. That's all right.
That's what I'm saying.
So I don't think she gets absolutely. If you're just religiously going Stand Fierce EX clap and I just V-Shift every time, bro, that's on you. Just do Stand Fierce into nothing, and then blow me up for just doing random V-Shift.
Yeah, like it's the same mix-up. The mix-up just comes earlier, and you just need to adjust to that timing, innit?
I think it's overstated by certain grappler players. So Laura's, for instance, I don't think she's dismantled by it, because Laura has options to get in on it very easily, and she can bait it out very easily. Geef, though, I kind of admit Geef gets a bit screwed by it in terms of the grapple hierarchy. Geef kind of got a bad hand in Street Fighter 5, I can't lie.
That's the story for every season, bro. Geef started off good in season 2 because he wasn't like a good character, but he just beat he beat the top tiers, and then like Capcom just looked at that and just slowly dismantled him bit by bit after every season.
Not allowed to be good.
I want to say Mika's in the same boat. I do think that she has answers, but they're sort of relegated to meter, which isn't great. Yeah. You do have to do EX Peach, and it's like, if you don't have bar, I know I can just V-shift you. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's a bit whack. But it doesn't dismantle her. It doesn't like ruin the character, but it does hurt. No. It does. It's similar to like Cody VT2. It doesn't like this V-Trigger's garbage now, but it is another option that you can do. But I can also call it out. It's like, it's not too bad.
Yeah, like for characters like Mika and for Laura, if you do a jab on block and then I V-shift, you can still answer that and you can still punch me for it. If you block a jab from Geef and V-shift, there really isn't a whole lot Geef can do about that. Honestly, you are out.
That's true, yeah.
See, I think it's contextual to the grappler, but yeah, V-Shift, it was very overstated in how powerful it was defensively for a lot of the characters. I think it's a really good addition. I think it's fairly well balanced. I don't have any issues with it.
I genuinely quite like it.
Yeah, I like V-Shift a lot.
Because I feel like the focus on you need like an anchor, like a counterweight to how good some V triggers are, and V-Shift is that counterweight. And it's like, while it's not guaranteed, if I make the right call, I can use my meter defensively if I choose. I don't have to be like, oh, my V-trigger's active and just pop it. I can go, well, I've got a lead, and the only way you beat me is V-trigger right now, and I know how to V-shift certain setups, and I have a read on you. It's like, well, now I can use my meter defensively and get out of it, rather than just V reversal. So, and I like the addition. Some people hate it. I like it.
No, I think it made that it being balanced and obviously bringing a lot of like a different like layer to a lot of like pressure situations. I feel like it also made like the game a lot more entertaining to watch, because I think in terms of like because it kind of works like a parry, you know, it's like a very, you can do it on like reaction and like reads, and it always looks cool when it lands. Because obviously when Ryu would parry in like tournament, I always thought that was cool, even though I hate when it happens to me, obviously. But when a Ryu would parry in a tournament like situation, you're like, yo you forget it's a thing. So with V-Shift, like everyone has that now, and like when it comes out, you're like, oh, this guy's learned this matchup. Someone's lab. Someone's been tied in training mode. Like I just like the addition of it was just like it was just one of the best things they added.
No, I'd agree.
I agree.
I definitely agree.
So I want to talk at the top 3 as well of the tournament, just to kind of finish on the Capcom Cup results. The top 3 for this tournament. In terms of the selection of who it could have been, I honest to God think this was the best possible outcome for the top 3 of this tournament. You had Mena RD, previous Capcom Cup winner. You had IDOM, literally the last Capcom Cup winner. And then you had Zen, who was the LCQ winner, who had tore through his group and absolutely annihilated the top 16 bracket as well. This top 3 was incredible, but I was hooked at this point. It was like 5 a.m. and I was completely awake because I needed to see how this ended.
Like I had to go to bed for work, bro.
I had to go to bed as well. I got bodied as well. But nah, I feel like, Jen's run was insane. I am so glad that IDOM did not make it into grand finals. I can't lie. I'm like fully on my putting on my NA hater hat, but we would never have heard the end of it. Like, I feel like they're still in denial about Street Fighter V's lifetime, about being the weakest region out of like NA, EU, and Japan.
Yeah,
I think at this point we can safely just say that now. Like EU was stronger, but I think they were kind of holding on to that IDOM winning Capcom Cup, NuckleDu winning Capcom Cup. But realistically, I don't think it's there.
Well, that and I feel like I know that the Dominican Republic is geographically within North America. But a huge part of it initially was US players. It was like it was all US players in that list, and then MENA started doing really well, and they started including MENA and Kaba. And like, oh, but it's NA. And you're like, yeah, but you mean US. You mean USA. You don't mean the Dominican Republic as well, by the way. You started doing that when we started winning a shit ton. And you're like, oh, but it's also them too. It's like, we're just trying to hold on to this.
We started being slick with it when we started including Angry Bird and Big Bird.
We did, to be fair, yeah.
We're not EU, we're EMEA, you know what I'm saying?
I've always hated that because
to be fair though, they made us do that because in the 10v10, we had the birds and they were like, well, that's not EU, is it? And we were like, fine, it's EMEA then. Like, fine, if that makes you happy. You know? So we had to sort of do it as well. But yeah,
that's true.
I really feel that a lot of the time when they say NA, a lot of people mean US.
Yeah,
but they started including the Dominican Republic when MENA and Kaba started doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a fan of like, you know, hey, like you kind of like yoink people from like less represented regions. You go, yeah, you're good. You're EU now, bro. You're one of us. I've never liked that because it kind of just takes away from the fact of the own region, right? If I was from the UK, let's say UK was a small region. I don't know. Spain was massive, and then Spain was like, hey, brother, come here, put the hat on, Espanol, yes. I'd be like, no, I'm UK, bro. I'm UK.
It's true, man. I mean, I've always and Sully will relate to this as well. I love representing the UK, but like I want to represent Scotland. That's my thing. I want to go to big events and say I'm a Scottish player. The only representative in Street Fighter League that was Scottish, and you know I still got put with an English flag. Do you know what I mean? But that's where I'm.
Wait, you got an English flag or a British flag?
People still thought I was English, bro.
That's a shit.
I had to tell people I was from Scotland. They were like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yes." So basically, what I'm saying is yeah, it's great to represent EU and UK, but like you want to represent your local stuff. I want to say I'm a Scottish player. and this is actually my region. Like, my actual scene and region is Scotland. I'm part of the rest of it as well.
100%.
Yeah. So I do get that when, if you just get roped in, you're like, you're an EU player, aren't you? And you're like, well, yeah, but no, at the same time,
Okay, I'm gonna.
No, I agree. I really hope coming for the next majors, I hope there's options to get everyone under us to just get the Scotland flag if we do end up on stream. We should do it. Like, I mean, you don't have to be making out appeals to get on a stream match. Hopefully we get the option to put the Scotland flag on, because we've got a very good local up here, so it'll be good to get some.
And I was going to say as well, like, a sort of low-key, sort of last thing I'll say is, I do really hope that Scotland is a scene, because I do believe it's in its strength, because I've seen it firsthand as well, that it can be its own thing. We don't have to be like another, like, oh, it's a UK scene. It's like, no, it's a Scottish scene. It's ridiculous.
No.
And at the same time, my ultimate goal is for any team event like SFL, we get like an all-Scottish team. That'd be sick.
Yeah,
that'd be sick. We could definitely do that, as long as if everyone applies himself and we keep everyone supports their locals and whatnot. We should be alright.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was, after this Capcom Cup, we were wanting to have a discussion between this, was which of us believes, like, who is the best pound for pound Street Fighter 5 player of the game's lifespan. So the player who's done the most.
We're saying pound for pound as if it's like fighting and stuff.
It's like a boxing thing. Like, who's pound for pound the best player in Street Fighter 5's lifespan?
And so who's the best heavyweight and like who's the best lightweight?
Who was the best current player? Who was the best Fung? But yeah, like, it can be in terms of results, or it can literally just be in terms of, you know what, I think they'd smoke everybody in their prime.
Yeah. So should we just do it in order? Like, I'll give my player and my reasoning, and then like just move straight, and then we have the debate after everyone's giving their takes.
Yeah, sure.
So I think, first of all, one of the most like decorated players, I'd say, like decorated in terms of like achievements, I'd say Problem X, just mainly because he's one of 3 players that has like a Red Bull Committee and Evo title, but he's also got 2 SFLs under his belt, which is you can't miss out. But in terms of overall skill, in terms of like just best player of all time, I still think it's Punk. I think Punk's 2 seasons where he was, and the global Punk, not Echo Fox Punk. Echo Fox Punk was getting bodied by everyone. But and the global Punk in like season 2 and season, like there was nothing. He would not even win Evo, but still be 800 points ahead of the guy that did.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, it's usually a toss up between Tokido and Punk, and obviously Tokido's a bit more consistent. But I think Punk was at his best, like no one's touching him.
Right. I think one's like the go-to pick, right? Everyone says that Punk is kind of like the player of Street Fighter 5, and
well, I think you've got 2 choices. I don't think there's any other choice other than 2, and you've got to say it's either Punk or it's Tokido. I think if you start including other people, some of it's recency bias, but I also feel that they just don't the matchup. Again, Punk at his prime, at his peak, when he was on fire, nobody was beating him. Absolutely nobody was beating him. Nobody. But then you've got to take into consideration, look at Tokido and his consistency over the years. And then not only that, but the longevity of the guy who's been competing since like Super Turbo, innit? He's been playing since like
very long time. Well
before. And he's still, like, I mean, Daigo is still sick, but Tokido is still, contender for winning like big events.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard choice, but I think for me, I lean towards Tokido. I just think Tokido is just the man, the consistency, the skill. But again, you've got to take into consideration Punk's level of ability when he was at his prime. But I'd say now, if you look at longevity and consistency, Tokido's still there. Whereas Punk's kind of lost interest. And it's like, well, that is an element as well. So,
I agree. Punk kind of spikes in performance. It's either like really high or just like meh.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
People say it's like a steady type of thing. All right, what about you, Frost?
I've got a weird pick. I can't lie. I'm kind of the dark horse here. So I don't particularly like to go by results. I tend to go by that I think it's smoke everyone angle. There was one year where Bonchan was the king of Street Fighter 5, and he won everything that was important, or got top 2 in it at least. The only issue was he got the dad debuff on that same year. He had kids, and I remember him tweeting. He says, "I've got to step back. I've got kids. I'm sorry. I'm not going to travel for the next CPT." But when he was competing for that one year, it was when he had the Karin and he had the Sagat in the back pocket. He won. He won. Was it Evo? He won Evo. He won.
Evo.
Oh, man, he won 2 other events. I think he won one in Japan, and I think he won one in NA as well. If I recall correctly, I might be lying there. He might have just been one in Japan. But I remember he was on a complete tear that year, and I remember the games watching him, especially the Evo run. I was like, this is some of the cleanest Street Fighter I have ever watched. I don't think anyone could have beat Bonchan when he was on form in that year. Not even Form Punk. I think his carrying was better than Punk's.
You don't even think Form Punk could have beaten Bonchan?
I think Bonchan in form would have beat Punk, personally.
But I think they've already played, though. That's the thing. I feel like Punk...
I was going to say...
Yeah, I think Punk will have already beaten... And this is like before his wanes came about, Bonchan. So I feel like he should... that should be him fine. But I feel like Punk beats him.
It is a weird one because again, even if you talk accolades as well, Punk's like won. He hadn't really had that whole season of just winning everything, and then Bonchan did win Evo, and he won a bunch during his year as well, where he got top 2. But I don't think because I think it was you had like Prime Punk, and he smoked everybody.
Yeah.
And then was it not the following season where it was like Bonchan was doing that?
Yeah, it was
or
the
Bonchan.
following
Not
season,
that he was
pretty
smoking,
certain,
but he won Evo that year. I think
Yeah, he
was
won
that the
Evo.
following year.
I think that was the following. I think it was season 3, right? Pretty sure it was season 3
Yeah.
because it was when Sagat was added.
Or not, actually, no. Was that not the year the Problem won?
Oh
And
wait,
then
no,
the
actually, I
following
think it might have
year-
been season 4 because I think it was after
two-
Sagat got buffed.
It was 2 years because
Yeah.
then it was the Problem, then Bonchan. So we never really saw what peak Punk and then peak Bonchan fought each other. Really,
That's
Yeah.
true,
they
that's
kind
true.
of beat each other during their own respective seasons. So
Yeah, exactly.
You have to look at I think you have to look at the accolades, and for me, it's still Punk.
There are a couple
So-
of others as well. Like again, as someone mentioned it, Fujimura had a year where he was
Where he-
on top, and then he just kind of
Yeah.
bounced.
So what I was going to say, right? I think it's too easy when we say like best of all time. We kind of already like. I think for top 1 and 2, it's pretty much the same conversation, but depending whether you value consistency or just dominance, you're going to be picking Punk or Takedo. How about we challenge you to do your top 5 players of all time in the game?
Okay.
Like so.
Okay.
And just to make it spicy, you can't put Punk or Takedo. Because now I think we've passed that conversation. We're happy with them being our top
The
2.
following 5 since then.
Yeah. So I think can I put it in order? I think Problem X deserves to be in that conversation. 100%.
I agree.
I think Fudo should be in that conversation.
Yeah.
I think he was too consistent. He just kept on coming like second.
No, I agree. I'm just thinking in comparison to like all the names that you hear like IDOM and Mena and all these people as well. It's like does that consistency, is it better than their achievements? And the answer is probably yeah, to me anyway. But I wonder because that top 5, the following 5 since Takedo and Punk is a really hard one. I think to nail.
That's why I think it makes it. I think my issue with including Mena and IDOM is because I think it's like the same story for both of them. They do well in their region and then they go and win Capcom Cup. Whereas like Problem X and Fudo, they go around the world and win tournaments and stuff like that. Which I think
That's a fair point, actually.
personally carries a bit more weight for me personally. So I've got Problem X, Fudo, Fujimura, 2 more players. Again, this is my UK bias, but I need to put Infectious in there because I'm not sure you guys remember like Infectious got like 10 top 8s in a row. That's like one of the more insane records. And like, I remember.
Yeah, I think I genuinely just on a skill level as well. I don't think I've met many people that, while I've had a conversation with him, is quite as intelligent as other people. I think he's ridiculous. Like, he's so smart.
And one last person. I feel like I would put. I think I'll throw IDOM in there. I think IDOM's a fair person to have.
Okay.
Over Mena though, I'm trying to think.
That's what I was saying. Like when you start looking at the list, you've got the 2.
Mena over just by virtue of having 2 Capcom Cups instead of IDOM. So that's mine. Problem X, Fudo, Fujimura, Infectious, Mena. My list without Punk and Takedo.
So who did you go for? Give me those picks in order again, please.
All right. Problem X.
Yep.
Fudo, Fujimura, Infectious, Mena.
Yeah. I quite like that,
Infectious
actually.
and Mena RD. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So those are your picks. Okay, I'm just gonna take a screenshot and I'll put it next to our plaques so that we don't forget so the chat doesn't forget while we're talking about them.
Yeah. You have to stick your name to it.
I've stuck a name to it, don't you worry.
It's a really tough one, actually. I'm sort of racking my brains because, do you know, again, there is an issue in my mind of things like recency bias where it'd be very easy for me to go, well, look at what Idom's been doing. But then I think, like, all the way back to the beginning of the game, because we're talking top 5 of the lifespan of the game. You're going back to then. It's like, can you really stick him on that list from back then? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like Kawano's another one. Is Kawano recency bias, or is Kawano actually legitimate on that top 5 list? Like that's the thing. You're considering the entirety of the game's lifespan, and Problem X deserves to be there because he's been there since the beginning. He's been killing it since the beginning. So Problem deserves to be there, I think.
Okay, so your Problem as well.
I think so.
You need to put in brackets under Go of SF5. No Punk or Tokido, because I feel like
no
that
Punk or
gets taken.
Tokido. You're right.
Yeah. Or you could say
if that clip gets sent out and that's just my that little snapshot and that's my take, I will get butchered.
3rd to 7th. Yeah, we do that because 1 and 2 is Punk or Tokido. 3rd
We're
to 7th.
competing for the bronze medal.
Yeah, if you compete for the bronze medal, isn't it?
So I like having Problem in there. I think Problem's done too much. He's done way too much.
Okay, so we put Problem in. Okay.
I'm trying to think who else. Do you know what? I would say Bonchan. I do think that year where he won, I do think Bonchan deserves to be on that list.
Now that you mentioned it, I feel like I put Bonchan over Fujimura.
I was going to say Bonchan for me is that pick.
You've sealed your fate now.
I've chosen my fight now.
It's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah, I need to hold that.
Let's have a think. Let's stick Mena as well.
So you're going to go Mena RD. Okay.
I've got 2 more, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
This is difficult, man. This is really hard.
It's difficult because I forgot Phenom as well, man. Like, I feel like Phenom.
Oh shit! Actually, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you know what? Yeah, stick Phenom in right now.
You're gonna go Phenom for you.
Okay. Qualified for every single Capcom Cup. Phenom goes in there 100%. And last pick, chuck Fujimura in.
Fujimura, I got you. Okay.
Uncle Fuji right there. Let's go.
That's my 5. After Tokido Punk, it goes Tokido Punk and then those 5.
Let me get you in. So I have different picks. I do have different picks. Let me just get SoundBoi's thing on.
You can Bonchan first. I know this.
But
will I go Bonchan?
Or do you have to write in brackets for you one? I think it goes like 1 and 2 Bonchan whoever and then because me and Sully think it's Tokido Punk like.
Yeah.
So for me, I personally feel as though for that bronze medal, in terms of players who have been out and been consistent, I think for EU it's Phenom. I think Phenom gets my place.
Ooh. Yeah, that's fast for him.
Itazan's very consistent.
Very
Second at Capcom Cup in I think it was 2018. I think it was the one where Gachi-kun win, and I was also going to say Gachi-kun as well.
I forgot about Gachi as well. Oh my god, it's so hard to remember.
Yeah, Gachi-kun was consistent.
He smashed like a year as well.
So Itazan, I got Phenom, I got Gachi-kun. This is where it gets hard because I don't know if I want to pick an NA name or not. I honest to God don't know if I want to pick an NA name. You're talking GOAT of Street Fighter 5, right? You're talking like a GOAT, like an all-timer. Like, my NA pick, I got shouted at this yesterday for saying it. I, on God, think NuckleDu was incredible for the one season they competed.
No, NuckleDu was really good.
He was really good. That would be my NA pick. If we can't pick Punk, and I don't really want to pick Idom, I'll be honest. Because NuckleDu was very dominating for that first year.
Yeah, and then again, he didn't stick around, did he?
No, he didn't stick around. Again, he got the dad debuff.
Had he stuck around for the entirety of the lifespan, playing as much as he did, you would have. I mean, Guile has not changed that much. Do you know what I mean? So,
no. I mean, he has come back.
I'd assume he'd have the same.
He competed and he came back. I remember someone said he hadn't played for like a year, and he came back and he smoked someone. I can't remember who it was, but it was someone on the West Coast scene. He said, "I don't understand how this guy can not play and come back and smoke top players the way he does." I think NuckleDu's got something incredible. He'll always be a strong player in any game he plays. And yeah, he plays a lot of Street Fighter 4 nowadays as well. So
it's a fair point.
My fifth, though,
I always thought that when the debates came out, I mean, I changed my mind now just because, I mean, factually it wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I always used to say that had it been between like my favorite NA player, it was always Do over Punk. When Punk was doing his thing, I was like, NuckleDu's still the best to me. But then like you can't really deny it after the actual facts. I'm like, Punk was still there. Do you know what I mean?
Punk was like, comically dominating. It was just like
exactly. You'd go to a tournament and you're like, all right, great, Punk's gonna win again.
Punk's
like,
grand finals, guys.
Literally every event,
already
you're
decided.
like, oh, great, Punk's here.
Do you not remember like every single tournament people went to, people were tweeting about it like crazy, like his bracket runs, like this might be the one where he goes out, guys. Never mind, he smoked them. Every single time.
It was like, oh, he says he knows the matchup, man. He's beating Punk online. Can't wait, and he would get smoked 2-0. We're like, oh, come on. Like, again.
For my 5th pick, I'm going to go Big Bird. I think Big Bird deserves a position in that list as well.
That's a very fair.
Yeah, well, he's always done well in SFL.
Always,
I mean, he did really well at EVO. He always does well at EVO. Is he always qualified for the Cup?
I don't think he hasn't always qualified, but since he's qualified, he hasn't missed one. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah.
So you can't knock that consistency at all. So I know it's not exactly the with the online one anyway, like the best region ever, but it's you can't knock it. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
One of the craziest things about Bonchan is that you mentioned him. I remember specifically he played with Nash in season 1, and season 2, Nash got nerfed, and then obviously Nash was ass now. But that was the season Bonchan ends up winning a major with him. Like, it came out of nowhere. That was his best performance, and it happened straight after Nash got like put in the fucking ringer. See, look, you guys both have no Punk and Takedo qualifier.
I know, yours has Punk and Takedo, you just didn't pick him, bro. That's your bad, bro. Someone screen cap that, please.
I genuinely thought these 5 players were better than both.
This man was better than Punk and Takedo.
This is like, again, this is the 3rd to, I think it's 8th. I think I said 7th, but I meant to say 8th. It's like 3rd to 8th, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas the top 2, it's one of the two. I don't think there's a choice. I think if you're a sane, reasonable human being, I don't think there's a choice between the two. So I don't get why you went Bonchan, I'll be real. But there's a choice.
I don't know. I go by that idea of, not results. I just go by, I think he'd smoke him, basically. Like, even, you remember Inform Daigo?
I just know, innit?
Do you remember when Daigo was in form? I think it was season 3 when Goyle was like at the top of his game and Daigo was smoking people. Like again, I'd like debate that him being the GOAT because of how strong he was. I think he would have smoked everyone because he was on a tear with that character when he was.
This is the only thing. So I really want to make this point. The only thing I can say about Daigo is, again, you want to talk about longevity, you want to talk about consistency. The guy's there, 100%.
Yeah.
He's got to have a place, but. Right, and I want to talk about tournaments, right? I think Daigo is the greatest 1st to 10 player of all time. I think he's the greatest long set player of all time. He's fucking phenomenal at winning longer sets.
Yeah.
But in tournament, I would take someone's consistency, like Takedo's consistency in a 1st to 2, 1st to 3 over Daigo.
He gets got too much for his GOAT status. The thing was with Daigo, he comes into form, like he's one of these like players that has like a weird like seasonal performance spike, like how Mago starts cooking everyone in September. Like Daigo always kicks in at the second half of the CPT, and that's when he's like, all right, guess I need to qualify for Capcom Cup. I don't have enough points. Let me just go win these 10 majors in a row. All right, see you there. that's what it's like. But speaking of like long sets, I was gonna bring this up because I totally forgot about it. Do you guys remember the trailer for Kemi no Michi where he was up against Takedo?
Yeah.
And this was after Tokido's most dominant year. Like Punk was in final boss mode, and then Takedo made a fool out of him in EVO, doing taunt combos and just smoked him 3-0 towards the end. I think it was 3-0. I'll check. But
I think it was.
After all that, before the set, Daigo's like, I don't really see how Takedo wins this. Like, he's doing alright, but he's got a bit to learn. And proceeds to, like, what was the score? It was something messed up, like 10-2.
I think it was 10-2. I think that set was 10-2. And Takedo was just.
He said, I need to teach him a lesson, was the direct translation. He said all this other stuff before. Then they said, like, well, how do you feel? And just went, I need to teach him a lesson. And that was it. And then he went in, and it was like, again, he's a master of the long set. I'd be curious, because I don't know it, but I'd be curious to see if Takedo won the 1st to 2. If it was 2-1 or whatever. Because if he won the 1st to 2, that's like, well, I won in tournament, didn't I? But then, again, Daigo's like, right, I know exactly what you're going to do. I know what you've had for breakfast this morning. I know exactly how you hold your controller. I know exactly what button you're going to press. And he just 10-0, like, straight away, like, blasted you. That is Daigo.
That was messed up. Like, that was such a good set. Speaking of, like, those, like, exhibition sets, Do you guys remember when Infectious and Punk were meant to have a exhibition and Punk just didn't pick his main? They had it was Kemi no Michi as well. Daigo was hosting it, and they did the whole like promo as well. So like Infectious did that thing where he looks at the cameras like, I'm up against Punk. It's gonna take everything I've got to beat him. Blah blah blah. And then so they get to they play. You're thinking this is actually gonna be a 6 sets, like first to 10. First is Infectious, and Infectious just Punk just picks Poison, and then he gets washed, and it's like okay. I guess we don't get that set.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of thing with Punk, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think, and again, I mentioned this earlier, and I like the guy, but it's there is the level of like I had my year as the GOAT, right? I had my year as the greatest, and you could never argue that. And now it's like I don't pick Karen anymore. I pick Poison. I pick Colleen. I pick Cammy. And if you lose, it's like, oh, but why is he not playing Karen? And he knows that you think that. So it's like we can't say that he's bad, innit? Because he's not playing Karen, is he? And that's why he doesn't. That's why he doesn't play, because it's like an OS that's already.
It's the pre-picked OS. It's like you didn't beat me at my best. Yeah. You know what I mean? I didn't even have to go for my best.
I mean, okay. It's like it's also complacency to a degree. Like, he's done really well, and now he's just fanning about now. Like low key, like that could very much just lead to him just falling off his Street Fighter 6. Like if he's just not like, I was the best player in Street Fighter 5.
He's never going to be as hungry as he was. There's no way in hell. I mean, that prime period, there's no way. And as well, we're not even mentioning the fact, I know it's not really like a subject you want to touch on, but like think of the money that he made during that year.
Yeah.
Like I know we're not exactly big money, but like all the tournaments he won, all of that added up, plus the sponsorship. The guy like bought a house in it. Like he's probably not struggling. So I don't think he's having that struggle of like, I want to make a career out of this, and you're starting from nothing. As you say, complacency. He's probably got what he wants, and he's like,
players get worse when they get rich in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like Sonic Fox dominated, and then all of a sudden you start getting like Dragon wins Evo. Oh, everyone's doing well, but like obviously like Sonic Fox is there just wiping his tears with money.
He's like, let me have money. I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
We saw that shift, right? I think it was with Punk, it was with Smug, and it was with someone else that they live with. They moved more towards content creation, and I do think there's that element of like, oh, they just stopped caring as much to compete, right? Because you can do the exact, you can compete and you can just make videos and you get sustainable income and you can kind of just compete for fun rather than I have to put everything into this to keep my sponsor and to make sure I get good results, otherwise they'll drop me and then I'll be less relevant and I won't be able to make as much money in the circuit. It's way less stress and you can just start to compete for fun and maybe you move towards that mindset.
It's more consistent way of making money as well. You don't have to worry about like a meta patch like absolutely wiping your main out. You're just like, that's still money, innit?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, I think if you're wanting to make esports stuff full time, you kind of have to lean more into the content side of things. It just makes sense because you don't know how tournaments are going to go in it, and like sponsoring a player for like fighting games is very expensive. So like you can't really so like at least with if they're streaming and getting the brand name out there, it's more easy to justify why you should be kept on.
Yeah.
But if you're one of those guys trying to do it on like a performance only thing. First of all, that's just an insane amount of pressure, and you will end up just not enjoying the game if that's just on your back all the time. But and second of all, like, you know, I mean, it's just literally like every tournament is like it's messed up.
I agree, and I mean that's one of the good things about the Warrior system. It's going to be cheaper to sponsor players, so people might get picked up more by orgs because you haven't got to fly them across the country for every single event that is in NA.
There's that, but also the point of that, which is like, not a counterpoint, but like an additional point, is that with the amount of money that's in Street Fighter 6 now, like the money that's to be earned, and we don't even know what the money is going to be like for other events as well, I mean, Jesus. You're going to see more major orgs throw their respective hat into the ring. So the one problem we've always had with the FGC is we've never really, I mean, with the exception of like Team Liquid, and I think we had Team CLG near the end, we've never had like a massive real bunch of orgs all come in and be like, we want that guy, we want that guy, we want that guy, and have like teams of like, we've got Team TSM, we've got Team, you know, again, Liquid, Team CLG, and then you've got all these like other big names that are massive in other esports. We've only ever had like maybe one guy that got sponsored by like a bigger org, and then they got dropped in like 6 months because they were like, it's like, we don't make any money. So I would hope that we would see bigger orgs step in and maybe take on a bunch of players and send these guys out. And even if they don't, it's going to be, as you say, it's going to be cheaper for them to just keep it online. They don't have to pay that much. I mean, pay them a wage to like make content and stream and whatnot. But it's not going to be like we need to pay their travel fees every month to go to LA and then, you know. So hopefully.
That brings us to one of the other talking points that we actually had was the state of the scene moving forward from Street Fighter 5 into Street Fighter 6 into 2023. We wanted to just speak about how things are moving forward with the competitive scene, organizations, the esports bubble and whatnot, and talk about who might step in and the opportunities that might arise in the next 2 years or so for players that are competing within their respective scenes. And I think one of the big talking points is SFL has grounded itself as a staple by Capcom. It has people who are willing to invest within it, and that was for Street Fighter 5 on its final year of its life cycle, and we saw teams like Cal was in it, Team Reason, throwing their hat in the ring and competing within it. And Street Fighter 6 is only going to double down with its efforts to expand that Street Fighter League, and we're going to see, in my opinion, I think we're going to see tier 1 orgs stepping in the ring, and we're going to see quite a large selection of teams with a lot of money behind them and a lot of opportunities to step in, compete, mentor, coach, manage teams, and again, that bubble's going to expand and more opportunities are going to come up for players.
No, I'm glad that Capcom like stepped in and did the whole team tournament, because I think they knew that everyone did like it. And obviously, so let's go to mention Gfinity again. But obviously, it's good that, because obviously when Gfinity tried it, it was well received and it was people liked it and it was entertaining to watch. But obviously, it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
I don't think that company's like to this day. I don't think they financially recovered from like doing the Elite Series and whatnot. So the fact that Capcom saying, okay, we're doing it, we can do this in-house, we've got the stuff. Like, my only like wish and pray, I hope they do it live. Being pre-recorded made it so like not entertaining to watch.
I agree.
Because they need to keep in mind that like if it's like EU and stuff like that, everyone knows each other. So chances are like everyone's gonna know the results within like the first week of everyone coming back. So there's not really gonna be like there's not going to be like a chat of what was I going to say? There's not going to be that much anticipation, like what happens this week or what happens this week. I don't know how it works from like a administration point of view. But like at the end of the day, like they need to make it a live show just to make us tune in, and that's my only criticism. But like other than that, SFL will do a lot for the scene, because now a lot of other younger players will end up like thinking that like, okay, I do well at this tournament, or if I start making like noise in my respective scene in the World Warrior events or majors, I might be me. And it gives a lot of like up and coming players something to shoot for. So I think that's going to be amazing for the scene.
What I would really hope, and it is a bit of a long shot to be honest with you, because I know the format sort of, as far as I'm aware anyway, the format sort of set in stone, because they quite liked how they did the format this year. It got a lot of like positive sort of reception, minus some of the rules. But I would hope that there is room for more teams. That's my big thing, because 6 teams is great, but there are players that really should have been there that weren't for one reason or another. But again, if you had more slots within Europe, you could get some names that, I mean, especially in 6 when it's all fresh, everyone's training again, everyone's trying the hardest. You're going to get people that you've never heard of, or some people that are returning. More slots for more people, for more variety of teams would be ridiculous. And again, you want to do it live? That would be sick if you could do it live. The big miss of EU, and I can tell you from an insider's point of view, I know exactly why this happened, and I was definitely a part of the problem, I'll be honest. There was no live team feed, no live team comms, which was kind of a bit of a rip. That's because there was lots of swearing, and they didn't want to air any of it.
Just bleep it out.
After they told us not to, we did anyway. We were like, oh, sorry. It's hard, man. It's too hard when something ridiculous happens. You're like, oh shit, and you're like, oh, my bad.
Oh, I brought the rules. My bad, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and everyone was doing it, so they were like, right, we can't air any of it. So that is obviously a problem. But I would love to see SFL return full strength, extra spots, because I'll be honest, the team format is my favorite format at the minute. It's so fun.
I enjoy it a lot.
And I think it's the most, personally, I think it's the most entertaining. If done right, I think it's the most entertaining format.
Oh, 100%. And like I think it was like really fun and just to watch and just seeing all these teams come together. But that thing you said about like more teams, I do feel like this last season of SFL, hopefully when it comes to Street Fighter 6 there's just more players in general, but I do feel like they were kind of stretching the amount of like players that were available. Like I mentioned earlier, like Wild Blast was just like, all right, we need a team. Here you go, you're a team. They ran out of players too quickly, so I'm not sure if they'll add extra slots.
I think for Street Fighter 5, especially at that stage, 6 was the right call, as you say. There were people that couldn't make it for one reason or another, and they ended up being like a shit. We're gonna have to make like a random team, basically. But I'm hoping with the following year they recognise that. I mean, the player base is going to explode in the first year. It's going to absolutely explode, and you're going to have players that again are returning that maybe did not compete in that season of SFL. You're going to have more people that want to get on. 100%. So being able to expand that even to like 8 or 9, just have like a leaderboard of like, you know what I mean, you could do that, and I really hope they do. But 6 is still alright, you know what I mean, it's still fine.
One of the things for Street Fighter 5's SFL in particular, I think because there were only a select few teams, they were constraining them to like a nationality bias. So it's like Team Wild Blast was like, this is the rest of EU, and then you had the French team and 2 UK teams and a Scandinavian team. My assumption is that, again, it's going to explode and there are going to be more teams. I hope we are not restricted to a region lock system and you can pick, more along the lines of, I want you in my team because I think you're good, you have a personality and you can sell this team and you can get results. Rather than the nationality system.
That being said, even if there is no like region lock, I think people will just default to people within their scene regardless. I do think, because I do think having people from the same region as you does a lot for like camaraderie and stuff like. Because if you remember, Chief Fennegan was we're gonna have to have like a graphics counter of like how many times I mentioned Chief Fennegan at this point. But like even it wasn't region block, and again most teams just ended up being like all UK, all France, all Belgium anyway. So I think like we'll end up doing it to ourselves anyway. We'll end up just like handling up. But I hope it's not restricted to that. I agree. Just let us do it naturally. If it's restricted, there might be a Scotland only region. That's fine.
Hell yeah. But no, I think the way that it was done, as far I don't even know if I'm allowed to reveal it. I'll be honest, but with my experience within SFL, as far as I'm aware, there are multiple ways that the selection process can happen, and from what I gather, the selection process this time was, and it was up to basically the teams to choose, and they said basically you can choose who you want, but you have to do the extras, or we can choose and you don't have to worry about any of the other processes or whatever. And I think if you allow the team to choose, as the teams are just now, like the teams that we had like BMS and we had like Mouse and Reason, it's going to be region again. It's just naturally it's going to happen. I think if you get bigger named orgs to jump in, you might find, because they do mixed teams in other esports, you might find that if they get to choose, not like the individual like captain of the team who's involved in the community, if the teams choose, they go, that guy's been doing pretty sick and that guy's doing sick, cool, we'll have like Crimson Punk Infectious on a team. They might just do it because it's like big players, big names. You might see that happens, but if it stays as it is, you're just gonna get like a guy who's their captain and he's gonna go, these 3 boys from my region are sick, and that's gonna be the team. Do you know what I mean?
You know what they should do? They should do a draft and make a whole show of it, like make it on like Twitch or something. And like, could you imagine that just like people will just made it, and then it'll just cycle through all these players, and this is like it'll be. Reason Gaming's next pick is
Dora Doyle.
My favorite bit 100% would be if we had like graphics. So you do a draft, and be like, okay, so this next pick is, it's Knuckle-Doo, and it's just like a picture of him awkwardly standing with like his arms folded, like like that would flash up and be like, picked, first pick for, like, you know what I mean? That'd be sick.
No, that would be awesome. No, that would make it like so. They can probably like lean in, so there's a bit more showmanship and a bit more pageantry around this stuff. It just makes it more fun for everyone.
I think that would be kind of fun. It would be quite cool to have like a draft system to it. I think that would enhance the viewer experience as well, especially if you had that draft show and stuff to embellish it.
Absolutely.
I think again we bring it back towards the state of the scene. Capcom have made a major step in funding, just saying, listen guys, 2 million, 1 million that's going straight into Capcom Cup, and another million's going towards funding events, World Warriors, offline events, and such. That is going to boom the scene. There are a lot of people who want a little bit of that money, and there are going to be a ton of opportunities to get access to that without even having to travel because of the World Warriors system. You will be able to get into money a lot easier than you could prior at the start of Street Fighter V's life cycle. So we're going to see a ton of people come back, at least for a year, right? I think some people might drop the game later on, but for that first year, I think everyone's coming in all gears blazing, thinking like, bro, I'm getting that money, bro. I'm being a millionaire.
Listen. Everyone got their first taste of esports with like SFL and that in the last season's SF5. Now that all this money's getting popped in, everyone's like almost like feral. Everyone's like hella motivated to get into this. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I used to kind of rip on esports and be like, nah, bro, we're not esports. We're grassroots. But see, after being an SFL, I love it. I want more money.
Money. This money thing is great. Eh?
Wait, you're telling me this meal's free? I ain't got to pay for this? Yo, esports is goated, bro.
Esports is sick, man. I don't care anymore. Like, give me esports, bro.
I don't want no grassroots. Give me.
Every motherfucker says that esports sucks until you get a free Domino's, bro.
I want this to be funded by an investment bank based on like.
I'm not trying to pay for my own entry fee. Are you mad?
I mean, someone mentioned it. It was like an esports analyst, like accountant guy, and he said that if you are an organization right now in esports, this is the time to invest in fighting games because there are so many games on the horizon in the next 2 years. There is essentially no way that this bubble does not expand massively for what's coming on the horizon. You've got Tekken 8, you've got Street Fighter 6, you've got MK12 as well this year that got leaked. There are so many things coming out that I think it's impossible for large orgs to not step in and give players positions to just earn money on contracts and stuff, and just give players more opportunity to start competing and get their name out, branding, maybe more content creation within the EU, because I still think, for NA and the state of the NA content creation, a lot of those players have stepped onto that. You've got Punk, you've got Smug, and you've got a couple of other people. Brian F is another name that comes up immediately. And in the EU, I think people are starting to get to grains with content creation. I think Broski's one of the first names that comes to my mind when I think content. There's One Step Layered as well, makes content.
Yeah.
Like going forward, I definitely think there are going to be more opportunities to start making content, making money, kind of just creating a scheme to get your brand out and get your outreach out within this scene for Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, and obviously with like the Capcom, like just putting that money in the prize pool, and like also with like Project L, that might come out.
Project L,
may or may not come out. That's another thing. It's like and obviously with Tekken doing their scene with their dojo system. Low-key, it feels like we're about to enter like a little golden age, even if it lasts for 1 year.
Yeah, like a 1 year thing.
But this year is going to be amazing.
It's going to be big.
I can't wait for it.
It's going to be very, very important. Like, not even because of the money. If Street Fighter 6 explodes in popularity in its first year, it's received well, massive like entry into tournaments, and again, if bigger orgs put their name in there into the mix, if it really does well, like phenomenally, I mean, the rest of the lifespan is going to be blessed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait. I hope it does as well as we want it to, and I don't care. Like if we, obviously I want that million, but if I don't even make that money, if it does well, that's all I'm trying to see. Because I want to see the following year be like, listen, maybe not as much money this time, but still a lot. And I'd be like, hey, bro, I'm still in it. But
no, goal is to just do well in season 1 and just try and coast on that cloud for the rest of the year.
Like you're nice.
It's just like, hey, listen, you've seen me in season 1, boy.
There's a few names that I can already think of that are going to be very strong in the first year.
Talking to that 15-year-old in season 4 who's got all the free time in the world, going, listen, you wouldn't see me in season 1 though, innit? Like that's what I'm saying. You're not that nice.
Like I'm 30 years old now, and I'm like, listen, bro, listen, you couldn't do that on reaction, yeah? Like before. I was gonna say, shout out to the Monster Hunter team for
funding the whole pot, bro. Funding the whole thing.
Actually, just bring us back from the brink. So let's just do like a wee fun little guess for here. So for EU specifically,
right? Go on.
Who do you think is going to win the first tournament? For
the very first tournament.
Yeah. First, we'll say major, innit?
Major. Okay, so Headstomper, I think, is the first major. Are we talking offline or online?
Offline, I'll say.
Offlane, I probably think I'd probably like a slightly dark horse pick. If he's there, I think Shax.
Shax. You know what? Actually. Just through who I've played, it's between Shax and Big Word. I think, or Angry Bird as well. I think those three are like the mix of like the best that I played.
Low key. I think Mr. Crimson might do that again. I think that would be hilarious if he does it again, because he did it for Street Fighter 5 in the first major. I think now he's on, like, bro. You know what I mean? Now he's like, he was already good back then, but now like he's got a Red Bull committee under his belt. He's fully like one of those higher echelon players now. He could definitely just like bag that first major because he learns games quickly.
He does learn games quickly. I think like when early Street Fighter, like the meta is different, because if you guys have ever seen, L.I. Joe is always strong at the beginning of fighting games in NA, and then he falls off because he just doesn't play them as much, but he's very quick to adapt to what is strong early in a fighting game, and he can usually top tournaments because of it. I feel like
Shax wins the first one.
Shax is a top player, innit? Shax is like one of the best players in the UK, but I just feel like he adapts the game super quick, and he's very fast to be one of the most competitive players. So I'd put my money on him if it was month one. I'd put my money on Shax. That's where I'd put all my money.
And the thing is, the big thing as well. The big thing as well with Shax is, again, it's a quality that I respect in players like Phenom as well, that he can pick anything. Like anything that is just good. Like if he's like, okay, this is just the top tier pick, he will be able to play it at the highest level. Like there are certain players like myself is in that list that even if a certain type of character was like the best, I don't think I could do it justice at the highest level. It needs to be kind of a specific game plan. Yeah. But he can pick anybody that is the top one and just do it. So he will do that with 6. He will walk in and determine who is the best. He'll play that character and he will play it to the highest level of degree. Yeah. So picking him for like a year one, he's going to win the first major, I think's pretty
that's a very good show. But I realized this halfway as I was saying that sentence. I was saying, they learn the game quickly. I also forget that pretty much most people are on the crack right now. Like they're 100% just playing the game. But like we're all very like legitimate here. But like everyone else, like other than me, obviously, I know I can't speak for everyone else, but everyone's on the crack. I'm pretty sure.
That's it. All I'm saying is everyone lost. There was 2 points, and I mentioned this to you before. So there's 2 points in the history of 6 being out that everyone lost, like the moral high ground. Yeah. So the first one was when the other pros got caught using it, when they were like, "This is ruining the integrity of the competitive scene," and then they all got caught using it, which was hilarious. And the other one was when the million got announced, and everyone was like, "I don't give a shit about this.
I've got to get on that crack.
I want that money." So everyone's using it. I don't care. There's no shame.
Everyone's on there. I think everyone's. It's like the worst kept secret in the fighting game community. It's like steroids in bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Everyone knows. Everyone uses.
I mean, for the crack, innit? Like there are a lot of opportunities to play the game. You just have to know the right people. And I'm not talking crack, but even in Japan, there are a lot of offline location tests right now for the arcade version. So a lot of Japanese players are getting to play the game early. And if we didn't have the crack, people would be getting ahead of us. Like
that's true. That's true.
That's another point. Yeah, again, you've got the offline stuff there. It's like, and you know, that sounds bad, but they always get some sort of favoritism with this. Yeah, like the same with 5 as well. It's like I'm not letting you get ahead of me.
I don't particularly think, like, I think a lot of people overstate how crazy it is, because I don't think the game's going to be in a similar state. The build of the beta that we've played is more than a year old at this point. It's very, very old. Yeah. The best it can really do is get you familiar with the system mechanics. I don't particularly think like learning, oh, this is a safe jump or this is a frame trap is like a surefire way to be good, because these things are very likely to change in the final version.
At the end of the day, you can't lab neutral. You can't lab to like condition folk. Like even like when we ran into folk who were playing the beta crack, I'm trying to stop saying on the crack because like
utilizing the beta crack.
It's not like they were unbeatable. Like they were very much still beatable. They just had they were just more optimal, and that was really it at the end of the day. So with Street Fighter 6, everyone's like there's just gonna be a lot of crack people about, and it'll be that'll just phase out in the first 4 months. It's
not going to be like, oh man, like Tekken 7 as a for instance, which was like you guys had a full like 2 years or like a full year on the arcade version.
2 years,
yeah. Like it's not going to be like that for the crack, because it's very difficult to actually find a large group that you can bounce off of and improve from. And there are going to be so many people that are stepping into the game that weren't on the crack that are going to evolve the meta in those first 4 months, where it's just going to get like melded too much in the early lifespan of the game for that crack to play a massive part. Maybe that first week you will dominate a tournament because of it, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal.
As we sort of mentioned,
you can't even dominate a tournament because everyone in that tournament's on the crack as well.
I guess.
But it's sort of as we mentioned though, is a lot, with the exception of maybe one in the top of my head, the guys that were very clearly like the difference between Beta 1 and Beta 2, like you could tell straight. You're like, there's no way that you just leveled up like this in the course of not playing the game. And there was loads, but with the exception of maybe one, I was still beating those people.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's because you cannot just level up your neutral by using the crack. And neutral is the important factor, and it's like, if I'm out neutral you, I don't give a shit if you've got new B&Bs into drive rush and blah blah blah. Like, I'm still going to be doing you in because I'm just beating your ass in neutral. Like, that is fine. So I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. We jump into the first release of the game, and these guys that are like, oh, look at this new mix-up I got. It's like, all right, cool, you beat me in one round. Like,
that'll work like the one time, right? But you can't magically.
Yeah, all right, cool. Whatever.
You can't just make yourself a better player. It's like knowledge check stuff for the most part. Stuff that's like, oh, that's possible. That's cool. I know that now. That won't happen again.
Yeah. You might lose the first couple of weeks to random stuff. You're like, oh, wow. But you'll just learn it. And then by the end of the second month or so, you'll be completely up to date with the game. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And while we've got 5 minutes left of the show, and while we've got 5 minutes left, I just wanted to touch upon the brand new character reveals that we got earlier. I think it was last week. Was it last week at this point? Yeah. We got Cammy, Geef, and Lily, the final characters revealed. What are your guys' opinions on those characters? What are you thinking about them thus far?
Well, yeah, thank you. Well, straight away, like, Geef looks really cool. Like, I like Geef, but I was actually watching Nemo react to Geef's release.
Yeah.
Like his trailer. And while he was obviously funny, he was like, oh my god, I hate this character. He actually made some really interesting observations, and the big one for me is his drive impact is actually really, really short. If you watch the distance he travels, it is not far. In comparison to some, it is not far. So the fact that that is a thing would imply to me that his other drive mechanics, like Drive Rush, might be quite stubby as well. Because so far in the beta, it's pretty much like things are really similar in terms of like the distance that you go. But when you look at a sort of specific, like Geef, who's like a big body, he might be quite different in the sense that his drive rush is shorter, his drive impact is much shorter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we're still to see that. But he looks cool, but I do worry because of how strong projectiles is that he might not be that good. We need to see. We really need to see. Lily, I should really like this character because T-Hawk, I love T-Hawk.
Yeah, you like T-Hawk.
So I will give this character a shot, but I don't know how I feel quite yet. I need to see more of her buttons, I think, because I like with like T-Hawk, like the big boot. It was like a half screen normal.
Yeah, that boot was sick.
So I need to see more, but I like Lily. I think she's interesting, and I think it's like a nice take on because T-Hawk, let's be real, his design is ass.
Yeah,
so it's a nice new take on this with the same moves.
Yeah.
And Cammy just looks sick. I hate Cammy normally, but Cammy just looks sick. I can't even be mad.
Yeah. What did you think? So,
yeah,
did you have a main in Street Fighter 4, Sully? I can't remember. Did you?
I played Bison in Street Fighter 4, so like these characters are doing nothing for me.
Right, okay.
But essentially, no, not these characters. But I say, like, I really love watching Geef's animations. I like that they leaned more into the wrestler stuff because he looks like a wrestler now, rather than just like this comically large man. Like there was like hints of this in Street Fighter 5 when he was like slapping his thigh when doing like the super kick and stuff.
Yeah,
that stuff was awesome, and they kind of leaned into it. He's doing jackhammers and calling it jackhammers and doing elbow drops. It just looks like it's like they got a wrestler to mocap. That stuff is actually mad fun to watch. Lily, I have no interest in whatsoever. I didn't find T-Hawk that interesting, and seeing Lily now, I'm just like, okay, it's T-Hawk but different. Cammy looks awesome. Like I think she her moves look awesome. I think her super looks cold, but I don't think I'll play her. I think I'm already set on my 3 characters that I'm interested in. It's obviously Kimberly, who I've been playing in the beta, DJ, who looks really fun to play, and Maritza, who also just looks fun to like mess about with. Those 3, I feel like I'm kind of locked in on those. Cammy looks awesome though. I do like the look of her moves. I like that little target combo where she does like a rising knee into like EX dive kick. Yeah, like her animations look amazing. Best looking character so far in my opinion. But but that's my impression on those.
For Cammy, again, I'm with Sully in this. I traditionally don't really like Cammy too much. I can't remember if it was Carlos Sully that mentioned it, but I'm a Cammy hater. The way that she animates and the way that she looks in game is usually quite boring, and the way that she plays is like super linear, so she doesn't have too much to her. And I've never really liked that aspect. I like how, even though we haven't seen like full-on gameplay, they've already mentioned that she has charge versions of specials. She can charge her Spiral Arrow, and she can charge her heavy DP. All the heavy specials, I think, even the dive kick, she has a charge version, which at least adds a little bit of depth to the character. Some situational combos, situational potentially utility as well, if they get extra utility, new combo results for juggles and stuff. That at least makes her a little bit more interesting to play against, because it's like, oh shit, you landed the charge version, bro. Nice, that was cool. For Lily, I like the departure from T-Hawk. I agree, T-Hawk's visual design wasn't very interesting. Lily is a better new direction. And there's something about Street Fighter, right? I really like this about Marissa as well. I like it when Street Fighter explores body types, because for the majority of Street Fighter characters, you've got... This is a 6 foot tall dude who's jacked. And then for the girls, it's most part like, oh, she's a little bit shorter, she's slim, she's like the general standard of beauty. And I like how Marissa deviates from that as well. So Lily, I think, is a great addition, because she's smaller, she's more like petite compared to the other girls in the game. And I think exploring body types just makes it more interesting, because you've got these different shapes and sizes in the roster. And I mean, Geef, bro, it's Geef, man. I can't hate Geef, and I agree with Sully in that the pro wrestler shift for Geef was an incredible way to move the character forward. It makes him so much more compelling to play against and to look at on screen. It's fantastic. These characters were great additions, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no. Happy with that.
I
was gonna say,
do you have like a closeout prepared?
No, I mean, honestly, I didn't actually realise the time we have gone over, so that's going to be the end of the show, boys. I hope everyone in chat has enjoyed it, obviously. Thank you to both Sully and SoundBoi for coming on, and we will be back to schedule content, so you will see us again soon with more shows. Yeah, final thoughts, boys, before I sign us off?
Final thoughts. For me, is that I'm just, in general, just extremely excited for how fighting games are looking in the later half of the year. I think locals are going to pop off. I think the wider community is going to pop off in terms of content and stuff, and everyone's going to be tryharding. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm just generally excited.
Yeah, I feel the same. But I just also want to mention that I appreciate that Sully's obviously coming in now. We're working with Sully sort of full time now, and it's going to be sick going forward.
It's going to be really cool.
You know, the reason this show hasn't been on as consistently is my fault. I will say that flat out. So I'm very much appreciative that we're going to have a bit more of a schedule now, and I'm very much excited to working with Sully. And it's sick having a trio instead of a duo. I love having the three man. Yeah, it's like
three musketeers going on here.
Yeah, so that's my closing remark. I'm excited for the future.
I extend the same thoughts in it. It's sick to have Sully on. Sully, I'm disorganised. Sully's come on and he's already whipped me to shape, bro. He's already sorted us out. So it's going to be a lot better going forward. But yeah, I'll let you guys go now in chat. I know you've wanted me to say the line. So until next time, boys. Meeting adjourned. I'll see you next time, lads. Bye-bye, fellas. Bye-bye.